guys. So I got 12:30 straight up. In fact, 12:31, and I don't want to miss 1 minute of this conversation because I've been looking forward to it for quite some time. Let me give you a little backdrop, guys. I'm Rick Hale, the Chief Energy and Education Officer for the Heart of Atlanta Group. Brett Caldwell sitting in with me as the operating partner, and we've got Jon Weinberg and Eddie Workinger with us today, and they are phenomenal success stories. And the concept is the Millionaire Mindset, and Conversations with Millionaires is all about elevating your conscious perspective around money and around success. And the goal, because we're in real estate, is to often bring in real estate experts and people operating in the field that we're in, just to elevate our awareness of what potential actually exists, and maybe pull out your barometer and compare and contrast your style, your perspective, and your methods and what's working and what's not, and maybe elevate some of the things you do to elevate the results. So that's the ultimate goal, is to elevate your mindset around money. And what we also know is money's only good for the good that it does, and there's more to life than money, but money certainly fuels a great experience. So Jon and Eddy are co-owners of the Expert Real Estate Advisors Group in Mount Dora, Florida. Last year, they accomplished 300 plus transactions, producing 72 million in volume, 2 million in GCI, making them placing them well into the MREA category. Jon and Eddy also have a rental portfolio with current market value of over $10 million. And I bet this data has actually shifted for the better, but 43 single family homes and 2 duplexes. And I'll share a few things personally in addition to their scripted bio. I just watched the way you guys engage, and you have a partnership that appears to work. And because you work at it, not because it just shows up and is always harmonious, but I've been around you a fair number of times and watched how you guys interface and engage. And I think you have amazing complementary skills, talent, but you have near perfect alignment around the things that matter in life. And that I'm super proud of, knowing you. You also don't talk performance, you get up and do the work. You're very learning based. In fact, where I met you was at a learning based environment that's not cheap. It's expensive to join GoBundance, and it's a commitment, and you guys don't miss. And the last and most important thing that I'd like to say before we jump in is just that you put family first, and that's a priority, and that wins gold stars in my world and in your family's world as well. So hats off to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having us, man. We're excited to be here.
Super. So let's just start out, man. I threw the data down, 300 plus transactions. I mean, that alone is ridiculous. And the fact that, you also developed a business around a rental portfolio and for long-term wealth building, that's awesome. But let's back up the tape. Give me like your best 3-minute, how you got here before you became partners, a little bit of history, where you're from, maybe school, as quick as you want it to be, but love to get some backdrop.
Sure. Eddie, why don't you go first, man?
Yeah, I grew up in Atlanta, Rick, so I know Atlanta well. Went to Georgia Tech, and my wife was from Leesburg, Florida, so we moved to Lake County in '03, and the market started heating up, and I was going to Georgia Tech at the time before we moved, and I started to go to grad school to become a biomedical engineer, and I was in school of 1 semester of grad school, and my wife said, "Hey, do you want to go to school for another 4 years so someone can tell us when we can go on vacation?" And I was like, "No, not really." And so she wanted to start flipping houses. So we bought our first 2 houses to flip down in Grant Park. And one was right on the park, 1905 double front porch, Victorian style house. And that's how we cut our teeth on flipping property, and we moved to Central Florida, started working for a broker at a boutique firm, the small firm, and I was there 6 years, and during that time I met Jon, and Jon was the only other human I had ever met that worked as much as I did, or as hard as I did, or as smart as I did. So we just gravitated together, and we ended up in the same 10-foot by 10-foot office, where every time one of us got on the phone, one of us had to leave because it was too loud. And so I brought Jon a CD one day by Dirk Zeller on protecting your commission, and he came back the next day, and he brought it to me. He said, "Hey, what else you got?" Gave it back to me, and I was like, "Oh, well, this guy's actually doing it." And then he took a big listing on a street that was like $1 million listing, and I was like, "Hey man, you need to put those 4-foot by 4-foot signs out there up front, like in a V shape, so people can see it from both directions." And he called me from Home Depot the next day and said, how tall should these 4x4 posts be that I'm buying? And I was like, okay, this guy is actually doing what, doing it. He's doing the stuff. So
at the time though, he's probably like, go get those big 4x4 posts. I'm like, man, they cost like $40. Like, that's too much money. Like, I was seriously counting every penny at that time, and we weren't partners yet, I don't think.
No, we weren't partners. So anyway, I invited Jon over to dinner and his wife, and came over and met us, and then we decided on a potential partnership, and then we ended up leaving that boutique brokerage and we went to Remax in the end of 2010, right on like January 1st, 2011. And then we formally formed our partnership the first week of April of 2011. So it was the end of 2010, beginning of 11, we went to Remax, formed our partnership 4 months later. So it's been exactly 10 years this month.
So my background is a little different than Eddy's. I started in Washington, D.C. My dad was a FBI agent, so he worked in downtown D.C. And then he transferred with the FBI to Montana, which is where he was from. So I kind of grew up on two completely different, sides of the country, but also different cultures and everything. So in Montana, I did a lot of hunting and fishing and snowboarding and stuff like that. And then I ended up going to a Bible college, was going to become a minister, and went back to Montana, worked there for a couple of years, about 5 years, for a painting contractor, and just volunteered with my church. And then I took a job in ministry, did that for 4 years, and I decided this was not for me. Like I needed to get out and go. I wanted to work in business and was particularly drawn to real estate. So I didn't know where I was going to go. My wife and I were married. We got married really young, like at 20. So, and we didn't have any kids. So we were like, well, let's just go to Florida. We had some friends in Florida, thought that'd be a good place to get started in real estate. And so I came down here, fast forward, there was kind of did a few things in between, but I got my license in Florida right away. And then actually went to work in real estate in 2009, like Eddy said, with that boutique place. And then when we got over to Remax, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. Eddy he was further ahead. He'd already read, I think you probably already read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book by Gary Keller. I'm not sure. I think Earl gave that to you, didn't he? Mm-hmm. If I remember right. And anyway, he was thinking more along the lines of working together as a partnership or a team. I just didn't really understand all that stuff. I was totally broke at the time, just lost my house to a short sale in 2009. As the market went down, my wife, when I started in January of 2009, my house was on the market for a short sale. My wife was pregnant with my second kid, my son, and I had a 2-year-old, and we had no money. So that was like, I didn't really have very many options about making money. I had to figure out a way to make it work. And so, when Eddy was like giving me stuff, I was so hungry to figure out what to do. Like I remember sitting in the room, like at this boutique brokerage. I have no idea how to generate a single lead or what to do. And I'm so frustrated. I'm feeling like all this weight of I got to make money somehow, but I don't even know where to start. And like I remember sitting in that room crying because I didn't know what to do. And so when Eddy brings me a CD, I'm like, oh, somebody knows what to do. Like I'm gonna listen to that. And I started listening to. And the other thing is she would real dramatically give out your paychecks. So she's like, okay, we're gonna have our little group huddle, and the whole team would get around. There's 15 people. Eddy's getting paid every single week. I'm getting zero every single week. So that may have played into when he came and gave me the CD, why I actually listened to it, because he was getting paid and I was not, and I really wanted to get paid. So that's from my side, the beginning there.
Wow. So a couple of quick questions. One, Eddy, back to you. What inspired your wife to push you out of school and into flipping houses? What was your motivation?
Carlton Sheet, a late night infomercial on Carlton Sheets. And literally she bought his system and we were going through it together. And while I was taking biochemistry and calculus again. And so we were going through that at night, and I just kind of really thought it through and just thought hey, I'm going to do all this work for someone to tell me when and where I have to do things. And So that was the start of it.
Smart woman right there. I'll tell you a funny, quick story. I was selling a lot of REO back in the day, and in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I remember going into a vacant house that had been flipped back to the bank because of failed payments. And in the closet was an entire collection of every Carlton Sheets video or CD ever created, still in the wrapper. And I just thought, man, is this not, it just tells a story. You probably should have opened it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
That any plan that's founded in some historical success is likely replicatable, but you got to do the work. And you guys, for starters, Eddie, you obviously got your arms around that sooner than Jon, given his story on early success. So, but you got to do the work. And what you saw in Jon was work ethic. And so let's take it from that point. You guys become a merged entity. How did you decide how to operate day in and out? Because there are a lot of people that would potentially work well with a partner.
We did it wrong.
Completely
First of all,
wrong.
Completely wrong. We didn't, like, I had never read Gary's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And so we bought a boomtown site. So the market's tanking. The only listings in Florida at the time were like REO. Like everything was REO or short sale. And so like the listing side of the business, which is what you should build it on, was very difficult at that time because there was like a handful of agents that had pretty much every bank relationship around here. And you breaking into that was like, we were too late breaking into it, I think. So we started building on the buy side. So bringing buyers to these REO listings. And we had this boomtown site that was bringing us buyers. And we just kept on adding agents with no admin. So we just made this like massive mess of crap. That's what that was the beginning. But we slowly started learning and like figuring out, like we got started coaching at that time. Wasn't it like maybe a year later, we started coaching with Kinder Reese. And they were talking about, Gary's book and, building a team, and so we started, okay, we need to get some admin. So we hired a couple admin but I mean, literally, we really did it wrong a lot at the beginning until we started, I guess like getting our business to look more and more like the model. What do you think, Eddie? Like
we just had to, we got a boomtown site, and that was one of the reasons we even decided to partner so we could split the cost. That was another bonus to that. But we just started running with buyers, not knowing what to do. We just had leads and we just started running and selling and we were on the treadmill. But I
would say like the best thing we did is we figured out like investors will buy these cheap REO properties. I mean, they were 2006 houses selling for $65,000, $85,000. I mean, really cheap. Nice, 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes with a 2-car garage. So, we found investors that would buy them, and then we started selling them lots of houses each investor. It was kind of I don't know. That was like one of the keys that helped us.
Yeah, you had a source stream of income. So that's cool. So before we go further, I do want to go back. Brett asked a really good question. He said, first gave you compliments and kudos for a powerful story of struggle. And the question was, Eddie, what did you see in Jon that maybe he didn't see in himself at that moment? And Eddie, I'll let you answer it, even though you typed it in the chat. And it reminded me too, that anyone on the call today, on the Zoom, if you want to type a question or an aha, man, we love to see ahas and feedback. Feel free to grab chat and engage with us. Because of the context, don't unmute and jump in, but because we've got a real tight schedule, but do ask questions and I'll field them. So Eddie, what was your response? You can read it straight off the.
Yeah, no, it was, first of all, we had the same belief system about God and about what was right and what was wrong and how important that was to each other and what it meant for our families and just what it meant, because of the fact that we feel like, hey, we've got the Holy Spirit around us at all times. So we need to listen to what he has to say, and we need to be focused on using the talents he gave us to do good in the world and do good for our families. And of course, the second thing was his work ethic. I mean, if he wasn't working hard, it wouldn't work, because we had the same value system, but the work ethic wasn't there. And, we talk about this a lot. We were talking about this quote the other day. Jon came into my office and was saying, hey, strong men create good times, and good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And so we're just talking about our work ethic and what created the work ethic that we have, and how are we helping our kids to also have a great work ethic. And it doesn't have to be hard work, it can be smart work, so. But
When you think about that, Eddie, though, I think part of like the thing that drew us together is that I started when it was terrible, like very difficult in real estate at that time. But Eddie had been there since what, 2004, right? So you were working, he'd already had like 5 years of experience before I did, but everybody else in the office, they were making money like while they were sleeping for 5 years, and suddenly the market shifted and they did not know what to do. They were so lazy, like at the time, people, because they had gotten fat and lazy because it was so easy. So it's like it is right now. Right now is exactly how it was in 2004, 5, 6. And so when I got in, it was really hard, and they were all crying and whining about how difficult it was to, do business. Eddie was just like focused on working hard. I don't know why, just probably because his personality is not to sit there and complain and bitch and moan. So he was focused on doing deals, and so he was getting a lot of deals done. And then for me, I didn't have any other option, and all the other agents in the office were just sitting around like doing nothing and complaining. And I think that's the hard times create weak people, and create strong people, and strong people create, I'm totally screwing up the quote.
It was an amazing quote, by the way, Eddie. I was going to ask Eddie I was going to challenge him to see if he could say it again.
Yeah.
Or someone can type it in the message box, the chat.
Here, I'll say it correctly. So it's hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times creates weak men. Weak men create hard times, and hard times create strong men again. So it's a cycle that continues. But the thing is, the good times of 2000 to 2005 in Florida, at least anyway, created weak agents. I mean, thousands and thousands of agents left the industry as soon as it got difficult, like as soon as the market shifted, which is about to happen again. Like right now we have 2 million agents. I guarantee you in about 5 years, we're going to have, a big drop off of the agents, because all the people that, right now, you don't have to hardly do anything to make money. You list a house, it sells immediately, even if you're like, no matter what you do. Like you could take one picture with your iPhone and it'll sell. And that's kind of what these agents were so used to, it being so easy, that when it got difficult, they didn't know what to do, and they weren't willing to put in the work. They were just, I was the only one. You can ask Eddie, this is the truth. I was like the only one in the office in the morning. I went to work like it was a job, because I didn't know any better. I didn't realize that I could come in at 10 if I wanted to. I just went at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I worked all the way till late at night, and nobody else was in the office except for Eddie. He was the only one there, and there's probably 25 agents in the office, but nobody ever came inside the office. So, or at least very rarely. I mean, they'd come and go, but very rarely. And it was like, I was just focused, like I'm going to actually work like this is a business and figure out a way to make money. And a lot of the other people wouldn't do it, and it's because it was too easy for them leading up to that, I think,
Well, and you've experienced failing forward. And you also, what I heard in your story is that failure really wasn't an option, and you were committed to figuring it out. And you're willing to work as hard as it takes to get it done. I think the number one flaw is that people come into our industry thinking that it's just a people puzzle and fun, and that it's not really work, and that they just talk to a few people, they sell a few houses, and they make a lot of money. And again, to your point in the quote, and thank you for typing that, Brad, good times make everyone look good. Like it's hard to look bad right now if you've got a database and a relational. Mm-hmm. And so what would you say, to a younger you, if you were starting today, about the current market? Let's say you're a year and you're having some success thanks to the market and some personal skill, of course. What would you tell yourself now as the greatest piece of advice, looking down the barrel of where we are and the potential for a shifted market?
I mean, what I would say is save your money, buckle up, and make, the make hay while the sun shines. Like you're going to make a lot of money right now until it shifts, and you don't know when it's going to happen, but you better save it. Like don't go buy a Mercedes and and spend all your money, because when it shifts, it's going to catch you off guard no matter what you think. Like people think they can see the future, and we cannot see when it's going to happen. It's going to happen suddenly. And when it does, if you're like spent all your money because it's so easy and next week I'm going to have 3 more closings, and you've gotten yourself into this cycle of like really, really high overhead, it's going to suck big time when you're trying to pull back at that time. It's going to be difficult.
I would say to my younger self, I would say, focus on making money with buyers until you have enough knowledge around the inventory and the MLS and the tools that we use as agents, and then spend any off time that you have, like when you're not with a buyer, you're not on the phones prospecting, spend your time honing your listing presentation and your negotiating skills around working with sellers. Sellers is where you need to focus your time and effort. It's the only opportunity you have to actually have a real lifestyle and make good money, because buyers will take you all over the planet, and they'll take all your time all weekend. So
I would agree with that, but I would say if I was talking to my younger self in right now, today's market, I would teach them how to take listings right away, because buyers right now, you could literally starve to death before you find your buyer a house that they actually win the bid on. I mean, they're going to put 30 offers in on every one. Like, you know, it could be really, really difficult to get paid working on the buy side right now. You know?
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are enjoying the same market we are. So listings are king. So let's talk about that real quick. So you guys come together, and I'm sure, early on you figured out that we've really got to be a listing-based team to sustain this team model. How did that look in the conversation, and how'd you delegate authority or what was your early business relationship like? Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Go ahead, Eddie. Why don't you take that?
I mean, we just did what we had in front of us with leads, because we didn't get any. We had to just go get our own coaching, essentially. So we ended up joining Kendra Reese's coaching program, and they helped us shape our thoughts around that. They taught us things like Vern Harnish's Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. So one of the things we did do right in the beginning was spent quite a bit of time in the mornings getting together at 7 a.m. and going over like vision, mission, values, and talking about that stuff over the course of months, over and over and over, like really just talking and getting to know what each other thought about our vision and our mission, and seeing how we were in alignment. And so that was something we did right in the beginning. But then when we were getting coaching, we were starting to learn, about the listing side of the business. And both of us took listings, and we just kind of did everything that we could to get enough transactions behind us and put enough money in the bank so that we could hire people without having to let them go.
Right. Well, I heard something that I don't know everyone heard. You said you got together every day at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And so you established a ritual of not only, promptness and purposefulness, but also honoring your time and putting your best foot forward and creating enough space to have that experience without risk of losing lead gen time. At 7 a.m., you've probably got an hour to burn working on your self-development or your connectivity or your plan. So that's beautiful. And too few people treat it again like a job. What about first steps towards, and I think Jon mentioned it earlier, you made lots of mistakes, and we call it obviously failing forward is a good thing. When do you feel like you started clicking, and maybe take that question into the organizational structure today that you have?
So that's a tough one. I'd probably say we started just before we moved to Keller Williams. We started kind of figuring a few things out. We got some good admin, and we started like developing systems. But I mean, really, like the failing forward thing sounds great. It doesn't feel good. Like when you're doing it, it feels like crap. Like when you make a lot of progress and then you just got to give all that money back to the market, or you have to give it all, like there was definitely months where we would make a bunch of money, and then the next 2 months we had to pay to keep our staff on board. And I mean, that happened over and over on that process. And it is so painful, you know what I mean? When it happens, but it does make you who you are. But it was, what would you say, Eddie? I mean, maybe 2013, 14 or 15 is when we started kind of figuring things out, getting people in place on the team, that it started going better, like humming along a little better.
If you let me share my screen, we can get to it now or later, Rick. I'll show you our quad track, and it kind of shows you the progression of what we did.
All right, should be able to do it now.
From the beginning, so you can kind of see this real quick, and I'll just show you. Hold on a second.
Sure.
Yeah, you'll see our one step forward, one step back, one step forward, one step back. It was like,
yes.
It sounds like you kept your feet moving. You didn't give up. You didn't slow down. You kept leaning in.
oh, we definitely felt like giving up a few times, more than one time.
This screen right here. Now, I know there's a lot of numbers there, but just go with me. This is 2013. This is the first time we started using this. We call it a quad track, but it's like a spreadsheet on steroids. But we did 28 million that year. That was 172 transactions. So average sale price 161, and then we did 25 million. We did less in 2014. We ended up at Keller Williams at the end of 2013, and this shift right here you see in 14 was lower because the move. We had to move into a rental house, and we were like the birth team for a business center. And then we did 38 million, then we did 50, then we did 62, 68. And so let me see if I can get this.
Look at the number of transactions, Eddie. Show them how we went. Like there was times we went like up and then back and then up and then back.
It was 172 and then 144. Let's see here. Yeah, 144 here. 2015 looks like 172 again, and then we did 130. Looks like 137, or I'm sorry, 237. So 237, and then it was that 272, and then again, my screen stopped working. But either way, I kind of wanted to just show that we've been tracking this for a very long time and how it worked, and now I'm having trouble with this thing actually moving. But either way, there it is.
You got it.
But here's where we are currently. This is what we're doing this year without Jon and I focused on being in the business, and we've got some great agents. This is 12 million in the month of April, so this will be a record month for us if we actually close all those transactions in this month. That's about $110,000 of profit there. That's a good month.
Wow. Yeah, I'd say so. I don't know anybody that wouldn't trade places for that, but the key is you've got to do the work and pay the price. You don't just show up on third base and start claiming prizes. You got to run the bases, hit balls, and go to batting practice and work your way through the minors. So
I agree.
Your team
Rick,
look like
you had mentioned in the beginning of when did it start clicking and what was starting to work, and I think it was you set goals and but when you have the dynamic of multiple individuals coming together at the same time, we're all showing up at work and we're all headed in the same direction. It just creates a momentum. And even though there were lots of challenges, we got to share our challenges with each other and our wins with each other. And so it's just this dynamic that gets created. And I love the idea of, saying I'm Ben Kinney and I'm the single owner of everything. It's just that's not actually the truth. When I sit down with Ben Kinney, I realize that every single thing he owns with a partner. He doesn't own anything except his personal residence by himself. So, just having that momentum of having each other to be able to bounce stuff off of or help each other with pricing and all the stuff that goes into these flips that we were doing as well. So
all the big decisions, when you think a good story about our investing is one day I'm driving around with buyers in the back of my car. It's like a beat up Buick Park Avenue that Eddie was so embarrassed that I drove it forever. Somebody sprayed carburetor cleaner down the side, the paint's running off, and he's like, "You gotta get a new car." I'm like, "I'm not getting a new car, man, not till this thing dies." And so I'm driving around with buyers in my car, and I see this big sign auction, 200 acres. So I just stopped, took a picture of it, and I'm sure my buyers are like, "What are you looking at that for?" And I go back and I found out that they were going to have a bankruptcy auction on this 200 acres, and the guy's like, "You can go under contract before the auction, and if you do, and we have the auction and somebody outbids you, then we'll pay you $50,000 to break the contract." I was like, "Well, sweet, I'll offer you $400,000. And he starts laughing. He's like, "Oh, we got plenty of offers over that. It's going to have to be closer to 9." And I was like, okay. So then I found an investor, and they put in an offer for like 900,000, I think it was. And then we ended up like, we were actually out of town at a conference, a real estate conference, and we sent one of our agents to the auction to bid for us. I was like, and I had done some research by this time. I'm like, do not bid over like 1.1 million, like no matter what, don't bid over that. And he ends up getting the property. So he calls us and he's all excited. I was wanting the $50,000 break up my contract fee. Like, that's all I wanted. I was like, make $50,000 without even having to buy it. That's sweet, you know? So, but we ended up buying it. So then he's like, I got it. And I was like, oh crap. Like,
yeah. And we were on our way to family reunion, literally on our way to family reunion. And John's he looks at me, he goes, hey man, we got that auction property. I'm like, what are you talking about? You got us sucked into $1 million purchase.
So we end up buying it. And then, long story, which I won't go into here, but it took us a year and a half to get it sold, 5 different sets of buyers, all these people putting you under contract and dragging out the due diligence period and then killing it at the last day, having to do this like 4 times. And we finally closed on it, and we ended up making a total 800,000. So 400 for the investor, 400 for us. And we feel very justified at this time of like, I am getting a new car. I'm gonna like, let's buy a boat. All this stuff. And like, at that time, we like sat down with each other and we were like, hey man, we can spend all this money on stuff that we actually feel justified in doing, because we've worked our butts off for a year and a half on this one deal and gone through multiple sleepless nights. I mean, I was so stressed out. There's times I would lay awake in bed at night thinking about this deal, thinking, man, I spent this guy's money and I don't know how I'm going to pay him back. Like that's a lot. It was like really stressful. But anyway, what we decided to do was, instead of spending any of it, we paid our real estate company back for the amount of time and effort it took away from our other business. And then we kept 350,000, and that was the beginning of our investing company. You know, we started that.
Our wives went out to the property and they got some of the dirt and they put it in here, because it was on County Road 437 in 2015. And it's a Jim Rohn quote. It says, formal education will make you a living, self-education will make you a fortune.
And that was like, so that was the beginning of our investment company. But like, it was us talking each other out of spending the money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, each of us was like, had things that we felt like we should spend it on. And I'm like, hey man, that's our seed. Like, we got to plant that seed and let's see what grows from it. If we freaking eat it, we got nothing to plant, you know? And so we'll be in the same place we were in 6 months. We'll burn through it and we won't have anything, you know? And it turned out to be a good decision to reinvest that money.
It was brilliant. I can't wait to migrate into that part of the story and how you've now developed this real estate portfolio alongside a robust sales team. But you made an incredible point. Now, if I were reverse the question to me, what would I tell a younger me? Spend less money on consumables, more money on appreciating assets and things that have future value. Mm-hmm. And real estate being a really key cornerstone for most people who are wealthy. So brilliant on your part to have the accountability, where on your own you might have gone and bought a nice, fill in the blank new car. But instead you doubled down and you created an entire new asset class for your team. And when you said you paid your company, I hope people get what you just said. There's more to it than that. You didn't pay Keller Williams, you paid your combined company, and you treat your business like a business. And it's obvious from, being able to throw up the spreadsheet in half a second. You track what's important and you recognize and realize that data is what leads to decision making. And that's another foundational tool of the wealthy, is they track the important things.
Yeah, the basic thing there was we had spent so much of our time on that deal that we had not been taking listings and doing the other things that was supplying for, the salaries and the things out of the company. So the company reserves are going down as we're spending all that time on that. And when we finally got it done, we just came up with a number, because I don't think we got paid a commission or anything on the sale, but we just wanted to figure out, because that was all part of the deal with this investor. But we decided on a number that we felt like was reasonable to put back into the real estate team, so that didn't suffer from all the time we'd spent on this other deal.
That's what business owners do. Capitalization is one of the cornerstones of success when you own a business. Undercapitalization is what kills a career in a business, and that's what happens in a shifted market. Most realtors aren't capitalized to sustain a 6-month run without income or a year. And the cool part about being able to sustain it is that the raw number of agents relative to the number of transactions shifts to your advantage if you're able to stay in. So there's a counterbalance that, you know, as transactions go up, so does the number of agents chasing it. And the problem right now is, I heard this stat the other day that there are as many real estate professionals right now, or licensed agents, as there were transactions last year.
I heard there was 2 million agents in 900,000 transactions.
So it's even worse. Your numbers are worse. So you got to get your unfair share. And the problem is going to be that when the market shifts, all 2 million of those don't quit in a day. They think they're going to make it. And so they keep fighting for scraps, and it gets harder and harder, and some are going to bleed out. So insulating your business practices, your strategies around lead gen, also getting creative with the market of the moment before it becomes the moment, like REOs and flips and investor opportunities that show up in different markets that aren't available today, will be the market at some point. It's not if, it's when. So your team today, lead generation, number one, we'll talk about how do you lead generate today for the 300 transactions you consummated? And then what does it look like from a consumer or customer support structure? What does it look like organizationally?
So we have 8 agents, not counting John and I, and we have a director of sales, Chad, and a director of operations, Nicole, and they run everything. And then we have 2 full-time admin that work on listings and buy-side transactions. And then we have 4 full-time VAs in the Philippines who are amazing, who do all the background work for the listing side or the buy side or any
a lot of the marketing.
Marketing. So we've gotten very lean. We've 3 people that were full-time with us for quite some time. 2 people quit and went somewhere else, and 1 person we let go. And so now we've gotten our expenses down quite a bit from where they used to be, and we're still cutting them. So, but as far as lead gen, a third of our business, it's about around 40% is SOI and PC, past clients. And we have a Boomtown site, so we get quite a bit of leads from that. And we get a little bit of stuff from Zillow, but we're focused on generating the leads with our agents as far as them reaching out to past clients and Sphere, as well as anything new that comes in, sign calls. We don't have anything special. Like, we don't have an ISA department. We don't have something figured out that helps us get it done. We just focus a lot on script practice and making sure that we can convert the leads that we do have coming in as well as possible, as effectively as possible. So sign calls, Boomtown leads, sphere of influence, open houses, I would say, are our biggest lead gen sources.
The value of having a big team and having a culture that's attractive and magnetic is you bring people in that have spheres of influence, and you immediately get a concentric circle of inclusion around your database and their database, and it becomes our database. And it's powerful when you play it that way, but you've got to have that magnet to attract and keep talent, right?
Oh yeah.
What's the number one thing you'd recommend someone do who's in the hiring process for not only finding talent, and you can pick the role, any role you want, but also retaining?
I think the most important thing would be how we hired our number 1 guy now. Chad Williams has been with us 8 years, started as a buyer's agent. He was going to college on a GI Bill and working full-time selling tires for Michelin and selling real estate on the side. Now Chad's been with us 8 years. And what I said to Chad when he came and met with us, it was just him and I sitting in the office, and I was talking to him about, hey man, we're going to have a bunch of rental properties. We're doing flips right now. We're going to buy a bunch of rental properties, and we're going to have a property management company. And this is how we're going to do it. And that just attracted him. And so to answer your question, Rick, I think you need to spend some time sitting down and writing out what your vision is, what your mission is, what your goals are, and just think that through at a high level. And you need to like visualize it in color so that you can articulate your vision to someone else that's really talented. Otherwise, they're not going to end up joining you. So you got to work hard and smart, and you've got to be creating some wins, and then you've got to be really deep into thinking and writing down what your future self looks like so that you can articulate that vision to someone else that's high talent, and then they could get on board with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, casting the vision is super important. You want people that are attracted to the place you're going. I would add to it two things. One, I would say is a track record of success and core value alignment. You know, all that stuff, of course, comes from career visioning. But track record of success, as far as like all of the career visioning things, to me, most important, track record of success and core value alignment. So like if they have been successful at other things in life and they're a core value fit, I would say you have a very high likelihood of that thing working out. If they're also, of course, attracted to your vision and they're on board with kind of in alignment with where you're going. But if they don't have a track record of success, even if they're a core value fit, it can be a problem. And if they're super successful, but their core values don't work out with yours, that's going to suck too, and it's not going to work out. So for sure, like core value thing is they have to have that. And then
Paramount. I agree.
Once in a while, you get someone with no track record that works out, but it's a bigger gamble. Like if that's your first hire, just know that it's a big gamble.
Well, the most important hire is probably your first, right? Because it's 50% of the third person's experience when they join you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't outrun that negativity or a non-connected, a person that's not connected to your core values. You're exactly right. And someone also illustrates like, early work ethic and success patterns because they're going to set the tone and stage, and they're either going to set the tone and stage for, superior behavior or, something somewhere in the middle or potentially worse. So awesome point. What about your VAs? That's something a lot of people think about, talk about. I've experimented and had mixed success within our offices. How do you pull that off? Are you with my?
You know what, Rick, John and I have gone and had lunch with Mike and Jenny Weimer, and you know the Weimers. They used to be at KW, and they started their own, and they did about 1,300 transactions last year. And we would go have lunch with them, and we'd be like, "Hey, how are you doing the whatever thing with your website?" And they were like, "I have no idea. Like, I don't know what's going on there." And the VA thing for us has been fortunate that one of our Go Bros is the owner of My Outdesk. And so we started, we actually didn't start with My Outdesk, but we started with a lady that used to be on our team, and she started her own VA company. And she got us a person who has been with us now for 3.5 years. Her name's Sandy.
And she's awesome.
And then we went to My Outdesk, and we got a couple from them. And Nicole on our team, who's super detail oriented, and she's our director of operations. And she's a high D, high C human being, and they're hard to find, but she's one of those. And she's the one who creates all the videos that are become training materials for the VAs. And then she has the VAs that are trained up teach the other VAs when they come on. But if you don't understand the operation side of your business, it really comes down to you understanding yourself at a high level. If you're not the detail oriented person, you got to find the detail oriented person and have that person hire the VAs and train the VAs. Otherwise, you're just going to bang your head against the wall and run out of energy.
Yeah. I am definitely not the detail-oriented person. I don't even know what day it is most of the time. Eddy texts me in the morning like, "Hey, have you looked at your calendar today?" Like, seriously, that happens often, very often. And so,
but John is the mayor of our county. Like, everyone knows John. He's super charismatic. Everybody loves him. And I'm the guy who's like, I got to get off the phone. I got stuff to do. But that's what makes it work so well. So.
Eddy will text me. He'll be like, "How long have you been on that phone call?" And I'm like, "Oh, man, just wasted a long time." But what I would say about the VA thing is, like, the easiest way is to create very detailed list of your processes and procedures. Like, so it's super, super detailed, like very detailed, like idiot proof it, and then do Loom videos so they can watch the video. If they have any questions about the video, they can call, but otherwise they can actually literally have that video up and go right back through it to know what their next step is and do exactly the way that it's done on the video. That's what Nicole's been doing with our VAs. And it's like, they are doing stuff that people say, oh, VAs couldn't do this. They can do it. And they are doing really, really well with it. When we hired them originally, before we tried VAs before, we did a bad job at it. It didn't work out. So we had the mixed results like you did, but now we have Nicole in charge of that. And she's just much better with the training side than we were. So the training is really important. I mean, she knows right away, like, hey, this VA ain't going to work out. They're not picking up what I'm putting down. So it's not going to work with them. And I believe, now she can hire just regular VAs, which are even cheaper, $3 or $4 an hour, because she has such good systems. She can kind of screen through how to do it. Another one of my of our GoBundance buddies, Dan Nooney, uses many VAs for his business, and he hires them differently. He doesn't go through my outdesk. He says he doesn't feel like the premium is worth it. He just hires them using Upwork, and then he looks for somebody who's billed 10,000 hours and has 4 stars or more. So he's like, these people, they've already been paid by other people, and the people rated them highly. They're good, they're intelligent, good workers. They're going to be able to do the job. And then he gives them his system, and he's had very high success rate doing it that way. So you're able to kind of look through like tons and tons of applicants, and he puts that in there as part of the criteria. They have to have billed 10,000 hours or more and had a 4-star rating or higher.
There you go. That's amazing advice. And they still have to have core values that align. I would assume that's just a non-negotiable. And then to your point, somebody's got 10,000 booked hours with good reviews. It's obvious they suit up and show up, because reviews are hard to come by. Positive reviews anyway. 5-star.
Yep. And we try to make them part of our team too now. Like, we bring them in on some of the team meetings. If we're doing a Zoom meeting or whatever, we don't want them to feel like they're not important to us. You know what I mean? So we want to treat them like human beings, just because they're in another country. We want to be like kind to them too, and that's what I think some people just treat them like they're part of their software, and that doesn't work out well either.
No, I mean, people don't, that's just not how the human heart and mind work, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all feed off positive reinforcement and inclusion. And so if you can encourage that, clearly you're well ahead. Let's talk real quick about how I love the story of the dirt, and I love your quote, and I love the fact that your wise men, they're so integrated into your story, which is really fulfilling to see. And the fact that you have a jar of dirt from that first big launch moment, that epiphany of, hey, we can actually do something and level up. So talk briefly about leveling up with your investment side and how that, you got to 40 plus, 43, 45 properties. And tell me a little bit about that.
I'll start the beginning story, because Eddie, so I was working with investors a lot, and I basically, every time I needed money, I went and found a house that would be good for an investor. And then I just started knocking on their doors, and whichever one bought it, I was like a wholesaler essentially, just to get my real estate commission. And then they started, like, as the market started turning, like 2012, they started leaning more on us, like, well, can you get someone to do the carpet? Can you get someone to clean it out? Can you get someone to get it painted? And so pretty soon I'm like basically managing an entire renovation for my 3% commission on the buy side only, and Eddie like sat me down. He's like, hey, that does not work anymore. Like, stop doing that. And I was like, why? I mean, I'm getting the commission. And he's just like, because you are being dumb. Like, you're just giving your time away, and they're getting a good deal and you're not. I'm like, well, I'm getting my 3% commission. He's like, no, like you're doing 2 jobs and only getting paid for 1. And so then we sat down with the investor, which was a friend of mine. He was actually from the church that I worked at in Illinois. He was, he's like a farmer up there, but he's the guy that was buying all these properties. And I sat down with him. I was like, hey, this doesn't really work for me anymore. Like, I'm doing all of the work and I'm only getting this little bit of pay. So, I'm willing to keep on doing it, because then he started selling them too. And so I'm finding him the deal, getting it renovated, then he's selling it and getting all the money. And so I said, look, I'll keep finding the deal, managing the renovation, but we're going to split the deal from now on. That was Eddie's advice. And he was just like I thought he was going to be like, forget it, but he was like, okay. Like, he just like, no big deal. Like, he was probably wondering, like, how long is it going to take for this guy to realize he's just like a free worker, you know? And,
He's milking that cow.
oh yeah. Yeah, that was the beginning kind of a transitioning from real estate agent to, okay, now I'm a partner investor with these guys that have the money. I'm finding the deal, managing the renovation, and we're partners. And then Eddie, you can take it from there, what we did, you know, from that point.
So, you know, John and I, we were flipping a lot of properties. We had the busiest time that we had with flipping was we had 20 renovations going at one time. And
Wow.
so managing all that was crazy. And at that time we hadn't hired Pamela yet, our bookkeeper, and I was writing checks, and there was a lot going on there. And then we hired Gene Rivers as our coach.
And we also got our first tax bill from flipping properties about that time.
Dirt on that shelf over there, that I paid $172,000 to the IRS in 1 year, and John paid like 162 or something. And I cried. I literally cried. And just to show you what happens when you buy assets over time, which is what we did since 2015 when that happened. Our tax bill for 2019 was 0, and our tax bill for 2020 is also 0, because we did cost segregation studies on all of our rental properties. But I was going to say how our mindset shifted is that Gene Rivers said, you know, you guys are flipping all this property and that's a lot of fun, but you're giving half your money back to the IRS, and wealth is in holding.
I remember him saying, like, how much money you guys making on these flips? And we're like, we're making 32,000. He's like, no, you're not. Like, yes, we are. Like, look at our number. He's like, no, you're not. And then he goes, he's like, so how much do you give to the investor? We're like, half. Okay, so now you got 15. How much do you give to Eddie? I'm like, half again. Okay, now you got 7.5. And then he's like, so how much did the government take from you last year when you filed your taxes? And I was like, you know, so it was like actually making me look at all that I realized 32,000 was really 3 or 4 that I got to keep, you know. And then I got pissed off, and then we had to figure out how to stop that.
Yeah, there's 2 great motivators: inspiration or desperation. When you watch 30 turn into 3, that's a desperate, sad state, right? I mean, you were going broke, generating wealth.
My numbers are also just round numbers, just so you know, because I'm about to make Eddie go crazy. So just making sure that everybody's clear. It's not exactly 3. It's
like hypotheticals tell a good story, Eddie. So what's your reality?
Well, I was just going to say that we just started in 2015. We bought our first rental property. It was a condo at the courthouse for $13,000, and then we just steadily went up from there. Let's see here. I'll share my screen with you real quick, because it's fun to just kind of look at this real quick. But it starts out, you know, when you ask somebody how, because we bought a 30-unit apartment building last March, 1 year ago today. And it does, we have 85 doors now, but that started with 1 door. So
Did you guys hear that? So let me just reframe what you just said to make sure everyone heard this. You started your campaign for investing 6 years ago, 2015, basically?
Yes.
And you're up to 81 doors. You guys, that's 81 rental opportunities and income sources and equity building experiences when you subscribe to Gene Rivers. Brilliant, by the way. I know him well, and I've yet to hear him say something that didn't resonate and probably caused me to shake a little and realize I needed to rethink something.
You're absolutely right.
He just like
equity.
He made us realize we were being stupid, but it was like he did it in a pretty nice way. But he's not like real. He doesn't really beat around the bush. He's like
no. He's straight to the point. This is our rental equity tracker that Ross built for us. So right up here on the top left, this is today's date, and that changes every day.
That's Ross over there.
And then at the bottom here, we've got these different tabs based on who owns, what entity owns it. So Florida Home 17, there's 17 properties in there, and Florida Homes 24 has 24 properties in there, and that sort of thing. This gives you some ideas, but this tab here kind of shows the big picture of that. But on Florida Homes 24, this were our first ones. There's the first purchase, September of 15. Then we bought 2 in September in 16. Then we bought this many in 17, this many in 18, this many in 19, and let's look at this one. This is some interspersed in there, but it was 18, 19, and 20 where we bought the majority of all those. And so basically we use the Burr method. If you've watched If you've heard of Bigger Pockets, they talk about buy, renovate, rent, refinance. That's the BRRRR method. And we borrowed that money from private investors, private equity guys, and then we got them cash flowing with tenants, and then we refinanced them. So a lot of those properties, we don't have any money left in them. I'd say 75% of them, we have a little bit of money left into them. So that's kind of how that.
Well, we did mostly.
The return's infinite when you have little money. Am I correct? I mean, isn't that the goal?
Yeah.
Leverage?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I would say we did until we did the big refis with Corvest. We got most of our money back out, I would say, at those refis. But at the beginning, so for anybody that thinks they can't buy rental property because they don't have the down payment money, what we did is we bought it all with private money loans. So private money from an investor, we would buy the property and the renovation money together. So $100,000 property, $20,000 renovation, we borrow 120 on day one, buy the property, then we get the renovation done using that the investor's money. And then when the renovation's done, we go to the bank and we did a rate term refinance to pay back that 120,000 to the investor. And then we just go find another one and keep on doing it over and over and over. So we didn't have to save up down payments for each property. And that's, I think the number one thing that keeps people from getting started is they think, I don't have 40 grand to put down, or whatever it is. So,
yeah. Well, people don't realize the value of influence. And I think influence is more important than capital when the world has capital. And right now there's so much money looking for opportunity. I mean, what's your bank account paying right now? I mean, I'm not going to, it's a sad state of, that's like 0.000, and then there's something at the very end. And it's sad. You spend more money in gas making deposits than you probably do collecting interest on the money you give them. All that to say, influence is powerful. So it's either influence or capital are the two drivers for inclusion in any business opportunity. And as a real estate professional, if you do the work on the front end, know your market, man, you can create a path. And I love your story, Jon, about how, you woke up in Eddy's influence around stop doing free work, create partnerships, and then use that skill and that influence to leverage a shared return. And then you create a bigger win-win. So hats off to you. Bigger Pockets, you mentioned that. That might be something people aren't aware of. And I know there's lots of podcasts. And what would you say if someone wanted to learn what you call the BRRRR, the buy, renovate?
We listened to hundreds of those podcasts. Like Bigger Pockets, I mean, we listened to hundreds, probably almost every single one of them for like 2 or 3 years. I would just listen to like over and over.
That's not an exaggeration when he says hundreds. It's not 3 or 5 or 10. It's hundreds, literally. But if you just search on the podcast app or any podcast app, search Bigger Pockets, and then search inside there BRRRR, the BRRRR method: buy, rent, renovate, refinance. It's a great plan.
And you can do it with no money. You can do it with $0 if you find the right deal. But it does take work.
So here's a quick question. The market appears to me, and most of my professionals, would probably in our industry would agree that we could be peaking. Are you still buying property?
Yes.
So
we learned from Gene to buy property no matter what market we're in. No matter what, just keep buying. And if the deal's a deal, then it doesn't matter what's going on in the market. Will the deal cash flow? We buy properties for income, not for appreciation. Appreciation is icing on the cake, but we buy properties if they produce income, and we're looking for a certain number every month, somewhere between $400 and $500 a month net per property. That's typically hard to find in a lot of areas, but that's the number we're looking for. And if it will do that, then we'll buy it.
That's awesome. Great advice, guys. We've got about a minute, literally a minute before time's up, and I'm respectful. You guys have been wonderful to share your story and your inspiration and how you run your business and illustrating strategies that help everyone level up. Anybody have a quick question to shoot out in the chat? Any thoughts or comments? Give you a quick second. Is there a question I should have asked you guys that I didn't that would have created some more enlightenment or perspective?
Here's two books that I highly recommend that we just finished that we're really into. And you get out of a book what place you're in your development path, right? Like when you read the Bible and you go back and read it a year later, 10 years later, it's very different, right? Because you're in a different place developmentally. And these two books are by Dr. Benjamin Hardy wrote Personality Isn't Permanent. Stellar book for helping you realize that you can change your personality. And then the other book he wrote with Dan Sullivan, it's really Ben who wrote it, but it's Who Not How. And it's the perfect book to help any human grow a business, because we're all concentrated and focused on the how, and we don't need to figure out the how. We just need to find the who already knows how to do the how, and then we need to articulate the vision and have them join us and do it together.
Yeah. Most of the time when we tell ourselves we don't know what to do next, or we don't know how to do it, it's like that's full stop. I don't know how to do that, and then we just go on to something else. But the thing is, you don't have to know how to do it. You can just find somebody else who does know how to do it, put them in place in your life, and then then suddenly now you know how to do the thing. You just get that guy to do it, But one thing I would say, I guess the one thing that I would want to leave with everybody is just become obsessive about personal development. I mean, that one thing has totally transformed my life, totally made me a new person, a new father, a new business person. And if your spouse and your kids aren't asking you to turn off the personal development stuff, then you're not listening to it enough. Like my family is like, can we please listen to music this time when we go on the drive? And if they're not doing that, then you're not listening to it enough. Like I listen to it when I'm in the shower. I have like the little Bose speaker thing that's playing, and I just listen to a podcast. I'm listening to a book. I make my kids are listening to audiobooks when we're on the way to school in the morning. I'll pause it sometimes. I'll ask them questions about what we're listening to, make sure that they're kind of picking up, bits and pieces of it. But just learn to get your, and I some people call it infotainment, like you're just getting entertainment out of it. But I would rather be getting entertainment out of that than entertainment out of Netflix and music that doesn't do anything to further my growth in my business. So you have two sides of that. You can overdo it, I guess, if you're just not implementing anything. But in my case, I'd rather be getting entertained by the Bigger Pockets podcast and a new audiobook than by something that's not helping me towards my goals.
Beautiful. Eddie, last thought?
Yeah, Jim Rohn is our super master, mentor for sure. And I just put his 11-hour audiobook on there. I highly recommend getting that Audible. And every time you get in your car, just listen to that thing over and over and over again. We've listened to him for over a decade now, and he has transformed our thinking. So that I just wanted to piggyback on what Jon said and throw Jim Rohn on there.
Yeah, that's made the biggest difference for us, because every time we're screwing something up and then we're listening to an audiobook or a podcast and we're like, oh, that's why we're having this problem. And you start putting the pieces together as you go along. I mean, you may not get all the nuggets the first time, but next time you're in a situation, you remember, oh, that's what they were talking about, and it starts helping you to get, take steps forward as you're leveling up your understanding of what's actually going on,
Yeah. That's beautiful, guys. Man, I'm so grateful for our time together. And what I'm resonating on, when I look back at our last hour together, what I saw was that two people who are committed to being their best and committed to showing up for each other and committed to following models and systems that work and committed to failing when you do, but not letting it stop you, but creating a teachable moment, if you will. And man, there's no surprise that you are where you are in my book, because I know you personally, and your story today was incredibly compelling. And I think it was Mark Twain that said, he at one point went bankrupt, and he was asked how it happened. And it was like slowly, then suddenly. Mm-hmm. And the problem is people see the suddenly and they don't recognize the slowly. And the reality is success is exactly the same. It doesn't happen overnight unless you get lucky with that 1 in a million lottery ticket. And that's just not a success formula that works. And, when we look at your numbers, thanks for sharing the numbers, Eddie, by the way, because it absolutely illustrates a steady Freddy approach to life and work. And then one day you wake up on the other side with 80 doors and 300 transactions and an amazing team and an amazing life. And it's all well-deserved. So thanks again for investing time. You guys are amazing. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
Thanks, Rick. We appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you back. I'm always here for you. All right, everybody. Have an awesome weekend. See ya.
See you guys.